Hello, it's Concord Wind. Two videos in one day, huh? Yeah, we're doing that. Um, there's it's only been like a couple of hours since my last video, so there's nothing to update. So let's get right into the words of God. Um, in short, if one wishes to stand firm amid trials and tribulations, one must be possessed of two things. Firstly, assume your proper place as a created being. You should be clear in your heart that you are an ordinary created being, an ordinary person among corrupt humanity, nothing extraordinary or special, and you should assume your proper place as a created being. Secondly, have a sincere heart that submits to God, and be ready at all times to accept blessings and grace from God, as well as accepting chastisement, judgment, and trials and refinement from Him. As Job said, shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive adversity? Job 2:10. And Jehovah gave, and Jehovah has taken away. Blessed be the name of Jehovah. Job 121. This is a fact, and it is a fact that will never change. You understand, don't you? If you are possessed of these two things, you'll basically be able to stand firm and get through general calamities and tribulations. Although you may not be able to bear strong and resounding testimony, at the very least you'll be unlikely to go astray, stumble, or do something extremely rebellious. Are you not then secure? Then you should practice according to these two things, and see whether it is easy to achieve, and whether you can accept them deep within your heart. Once you know these things, then when you encounter some trials, how differently you will view and understand them as your own business. Amen. These words are so awesome. And they give me so much affirmation and hope for myself, because before I even read that passage, I've said, I just want to be a tiny creature created by God, and I just want to accept His blessings and His curses. I've said that so many times on these videos, and then there's this passage that's basically saying, be this way. It's like, and it shows that God's words achieve a certain effect. If you've been reading God's words for a while and practicing them for a while, you see that the result that's achieved from doing these things is that you become this type of person. Without God even having to go into detail and explicitly say what type of person you should be, the results are already there in some people, that's what I've experienced with this passage, is that I was this type of person before God said anything explicitly about it, because His words aim to achieve this effect. And it's amazing. And it could be a situation like that. I can't remember exactly. Or it could be that these words have stuck with me. I know that I've wanted to be just a tiny creature created by God for years now. And I see myself as just a tiny creature created by God. And I accept His blessings and His curses. And everything about God, I submit to. I submit to His righteousness. His righteousness is expressed through His rewarding of good and punishing of wicked. And the fact that He's rewarded me so much for my loyalty and commitment to Him, and the suffering that I've experienced, everything I've lost has been paid back to me. And, I see God's righteousness in all of that. And I see that the fact that God let me suffer and lose everything, God's righteousness was there as well in those trials, because during those, if it wasn't for those trials, I wouldn't have been able to have seen my own corruption. And because corruption is exposed through trials, like when everything's going good, you don't see your corruption. You just think you're a good person, and then, when everything's going good, and I've had some trials here and there, even as things have been good. I've had some trials, like my chest pain that I experienced several months ago. I think it was over the summer, last summer. And went to the hospital, and that was a trial. And I just told God I wanted my last words to be, I love you, God. I wanted those to be my last words, and I told him, if it's my time to go, then that's fine. I submit even unto death to your arrangements, God, is what I told him. And then there was the Facebook trial that I failed at first, but then I realized that I was wrong, and I improved, and I learned my lesson. And that situation was like, my Facebook was deactivated by administrators, and I was looking at like potential charges against me, and when that happened, the first thing I said was that I was disappointed in God, which is a failure. And then like maybe that same day or the day after, I realized, oh wait, I shouldn't be disappointed in God. Everything God does, he has the best intentions. And this could be how God shows, like this could be God answering my prayers is by eliminating my Facebook, so that the temptation of Facebook is away from me. And I realized that, and I was like, wow, I shouldn't have said I was disappointed in God. And I felt really bad, and I still feel bad for saying that. Those words should never have came out of my mouth. But I learned my lesson, and now I know if something happens that I'm praying about, I shouldn't expect a specific outcome, because God's wisdom is higher than man's wisdom. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. He has a plan, and typically his plan goes against our notions. And so if we have an expectation for a specific outcome, typically we're going to complain against God when it doesn't work out the way we thought it would. So we should be open to God's arrangements, open to his plans, because they typically will not go the way we think they will. And that's really hard to do, especially if you're praying about something. That's why, it's best to just pray for God's will to be done. It's really not good to make specific prayers. Because when you make a specific prayer, like, God, please do this for me or do that for me, when you make a prayer like that, it gives you this expectation in your heart. And you'll be disappointed because God's not going to meet that expectation. He does whatever he wants, and typically whatever he wants is not what people want, So it's good to have an attitude of submission to God. Of course, obviously that's good. But a lot of people don't know how to put that into practice, and part of putting that into practice is like avoiding specific prayers, Just pray for God's will to be done and let that be your prayer. And you can tell him how you feel. You can tell him what's on your mind. You can tell him what happened to you, blah, blah, blah. You can open up to him and tell him whatever, but don't ask for specific things, because that will give you an expectation. If you ask for something specific from God, once again, that will give you an expectation, and that expectation probably won't be met. Let's be honest. It's very rare that God conforms to the expectations of man. It's very rare. He usually does not do that. So part of having no expectations is, because like if you have a strong faith in God, when you ask something of him, you expect to get whatever you ask for, right? Ask and you shall receive. We have those words of Jesus to go off of. We know. But like, God doesn't work that way, He typically, and ask and you shall receive is true. Those are the words of Jesus. Those words are the truth. But I'm just using a workaround so that you don't have expectations. Because you can ask for anything from God and he'll answer your prayers, but the way he answers your prayers will not meet your expectations, and then you'll complain against God and be disappointed. And that's why I say don't ask for things specifically, unless it's like things that are in line with God's will, like, and you have to be like, and maybe if you ask for something specifically, just be like, and you can answer this prayer in any way you want, like whether, like, I don't want to have expectations. Please help me to not have expectations, and, answer this prayer in a way that either conforms to my notions or goes against my notions. I don't care. I'm ready to submit no matter what. Have that attitude when you pray, maybe, because like I'm talking this out, like I'm thinking out loud. I'm processing how to do this, like live on this video. Well, this video is not live, but you know what I mean. I'm processing this like as I'm going. By filtering my thoughts through God's words and thinking of like different paths and out like possibilities, like so yeah. When you pray, just make sure you don't have expectations, right? That's so important, because if you have expectations, you will be disappointed. It's like a guarantee, because God does not work within people's expectations. He doesn't do it. I've learned that. I've seen throughout my life. There's only 2 times God has answered my prayers in ways that conform to my expectations, and even then it wasn't like 100% conformity to my expectations. It was more like 20%. So I was still surprised, and it was still unusual. Like when I prayed for God's wrath to come upon me, I didn't expect to develop schizophrenia. When I prayed for my suffering to go away, I didn't expect that my life would consist mostly of just like watching Crunchyroll and YouTube and Patreon. I wasn't expecting my life to consist mostly of those things, but my suffering is gone. He did answer that prayer. I just thought that I would be able to rejoin the church or something. I didn't expect my life to be so secular, but it is. I live, like my entertainment's very secular, and it's just an unusual way that God answered my prayer. And I don't really do much. I mean, these videos are like the highlight of my life. This is like what I look forward to the most, is making these videos. These videos are my favorite part of the day. And it's why I suffer through caffeine. Even though caffeine makes me throw up, I drink it anyways. I'm willing to pay a price, And God tells us that we should pay a price. That's part of practicing the truth. It's a good deed to pay the price for the truth. And if caffeine helps me to express myself and express my understanding of the truth more clearly and comprehensively, then it's worth it to me to pay the price to throw up every now and then from caffeine in order to be able to speak my understanding of the truth, right? So I pay that price. So that's part of doing a good deed. So I do good deeds. I accumulate good deeds, which is, better than just not doing evil, because not doing evil isn't good enough. You have to prepare good deeds. Anyways, my mom's calling, but this is like kind of the end of the video anyways. I've said everything that needs to be said. Kind of a short video, shorter than the one earlier today, but it's been a good video. Yeah, so that's it. I guess the title of this video will be Faith Without Works is Dead, that Bible verse. Because since it's a Bible verse, it should catch people's attention. But basically, what that means is prepare a sufficient amount of good deeds for your future. That's what that translates to. So remember, part of a really easy good deed to do is to suffer hardship for the truth. So, and we can talk about some other good deeds maybe in future videos. Doing your duty according to God's words, submitting to God's arrangements, accepting God's blessings and his curses, seeing yourself as just a tiny creature created by God. You don't see yourself as special. That's all in line with the truth and helps you to do good deeds and practice the truth. So yeah, all right. So now that really is it. So thank you so much for watching. God bless and goodbye.